Hi, welcome to 16-Bit Bench, Matt here. Today we're going to be installing a mod chip in this original PlayStation. PlayStation is region locked, which was fine for the time and revenue protected Sony and made the PlayStation a success. But now this console is considered almost retro. In fact, I would consider this a retro console. We are going to mod it so we can play games from other regions and also reproductions and burnt games, but don't tell anyone. So this is a model 7502, which is quite a late PlayStation model. It would have been right before the PS1 redesign, and that means this is probably quite a reliable model of PlayStation. It's going to be the size and all the components and size are going to be reduced to like an absolute minimum of what's needed to make it work, and the power supply will probably be pretty good and all that stuff. So yeah, if you want to pick up a PlayStation, I recommend picking up a late revision. So you're looking for a 7000 or a 5000 console. Okay, so first thing we're going to do before we take it apart, is we are going to plug it into the TV and make sure it bloody works. So to the TV. Okay, so before we tear this apart, let's just make sure it works. These, PlayStations are getting on. A lot of them have failed lasers. Lasers are not that expensive to replace. They're about £10 on eBay, and it's a very easy replacement. You just remove the screws and swap out the whole unit, and it's just one whole thing. So that's easy to do, but I'm hoping this one, the laser still works, so you won't have to do that right now. Okay, so let's turn it on. Super loud. I can hear the drive spinning. Yep, there we go. So that's the. Thank you. Going from the PlayStation logo to the copyright, or is it an epilepsy warning? Anyway, going straight to that is a really good sign. That means the disk drive is working and everything's working as intended. I can't be bothered to get a controller because I don't need one. But yeah, that PlayStation is working. So let's crack it open and look at where the mod chip needs to go. There we go, bit of Tekken. Whew. Didn't actually get into the game, but who cares? I did go back to it and plug a controller in because it did occur to me that maybe the controllers don't work, and the controllers work fine. And look at that. I mean, it's weird to me. This is a really uncomfortable controller. I forgot how bad this is. Without the weight of the dual analog sticks, one, it's really light. Two, the curve on these bits is really severe, to the point where in my nearly 40-year-old man hands, it's digging into my palm right there. It's horrible. Compared to the PS4 controller, piece of shit. So yeah, console works great. So what we're going to do is we're going to crack it open and we're going to have a look inside, and then we're going to look at a guide on how to burn and install a mod chip. So yeah, let's turn this guy over. I've got really into using my super long screwdriver. It just gives you a bit of extra torque. I can unscrew screws with my fingertips. Just something really nice about using a really long screwdriver. I'm sure it's some kind of physicsy reason. One of my first jobs once I left university was a broadcast equipment repair person in London, and Sony at the time, and still to a certain extent, has the broadcast equipment sector completely cornered. So you'd work on a lot of Sony stuff, and one of the things I like about Sony stuff is, for instance, all the screws to open it have a little arrow saying this here is where you open it. There's something rattling around in there. So just check there's no disc in there. Oh, there is. Let's take it out. Place it safely on its label side down. Okay, so screws removed. Look at that. There's a bit of rolling tobacco in there. I think it's amber leaf. So you can see the top of the case is a bit yellowed, and you see this mark here. That's where I cleaned it, and that absolute brown gunk came off. So I might retro bright that because it's been sunny the last few days. So maybe you'll see. Don't hold your breath, but maybe in this video you'll see me doing a bit of retro brighting. Okay, so it's dirty in here. What we need to do is we need to ascertain the board version, and to do that I think we're going to have to take it out. So here's your parallel port cover, put that to one side safely. Here's a thing, and in the thing we put our parts. So if you don't own a thing, I suggest you look around for a thing and get a thing, because they're really invaluable for keeping things where they're supposed to be. It's super filthy in here. Okay, so that 2 ribbon cables, done, disconnect the laser, and as I said, the laser is super cheap to replace, so if it did fail, that whole unit is a few pounds on eBay. I'm sure Sony probably produced a lot of them, and they sit around like new old stock in a warehouse somewhere. Just disconnect the controller ports, and then we'll disconnect the power. So there's this little, see this white thing here? Looks like it just clips under the shielding. Yeah, there we go. So the white thing just comes out, and everything is cable. Has little connectors on it, which is good. What's that? It's like a bit of garden twine. What I really want to find is, like, 12 grams of cocaine and a wad of £50 notes, but so far we've got a piece of tobacco and a bit of garden twine. And again, now we're in there. You can see. Do you see these arrows? Right, you want to take something made by Sony apart, just look for arrows and unscrew it there. I'm not sure if that's I haven't taken a PS4 apart. I have taken a PS2 apart, and that is the same. It does have arrows everywhere. I haven't taken the 3 or the 4 apart, just because I haven't needed to. So it looks to me like the shield comes off. So that's a hefty piece of metal as well. Scrap value on these things is probably quite high. Here we've got the, and you could have seen it before, that's the switch for the lid close sensor. So for some, there's a couple of ways of modding your console actually. There's a soft mod which uses a Game Shark into the parallel port here, and then a boot disk. But there's also a way of doing it with just a disk, and like depressing this button with the lid open and swapping discs and stuff. So but I haven't looked into those for ages. By the time I started caring about burning my playing import games on my PlayStation, I'd moved on to PS2. Okay, so that is our board removed. We no longer require this piece, and what I'll do is put this to one side and then blow it out with some compressed air later. So this is our board. There we are. So here it says PU22. That's our board revision right there. So armed with this information and this tiny board. I mean, look at that. Look at that. It's almost like you want to make a Ben Heck style handheld, really, isn't it? But what would be the point? Because you could just get a PSP, which is a PlayStation handheld. Okay, so like that button. We might have to, I really hope we don't have to desolder the shield, but I think we do, because we're going to be needing to get to chips under here. So armed with the information that this is a PE22, what we're going to do is go to the computer and we're going to look on the computer on a guide, and that will tell us what we need to do next. Okay, so we're going to use a guide to how to install our mod chip, and the best one I found on the internet is William Quaid's guide, and it's at this address here, obviously linked in the description. And he just goes through the sort of history of the mod chip, what you would want a mod chip for, you know, what it comes on, what you need to do, all that sort of stuff, and some caveats as well. So like one of the most useful sections is what mod chip should I use. If you have an original console, you need one type of mod chip. If you have anything else, get MM3. So there seems to be two main chips, and if we go to the top here, the MM3 and the Mayumi V4. So the MM3 I believe is more suitable for PAL consoles, and the Mayumi is more suitable for Japanese and NTSC consoles. So what we're going to do is look at the MM3. As you can see, it's one pretty small chip. And what we need to know is our board version, as we found it's a PU22. So, and it says here all 7500s, 7501s, and 7502s. We had a 7502. So we've got a PU22. So here we go. This is the way you basically how you install your mod chip. Some drawings and stuff, and you know, it looks pretty straightforward to me, just like solder wires in these positions. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to get our PIC and we need to program it, so let's do that. Okay, so we've looked at our wiring diagram and we kind of figured out where everything needs to go. So we go back to the MM3 guide page, scroll past where your board revisions are, and you'll get down to the two PICs that we can use. So I've bought a 12F675, which is exactly the same as the 629. So if you search for 675 and open the data sheet on the first page says 12F69/675, and the difference between those two, if we scroll down, is that the 675 has a 4-channel analog to digital converter in it. Other than that, the pinout is exactly the same. Obviously the 675 has A to D pins, which the 29 does not have, but other than that they will run the same code. So the code doesn't take advantage of the A to D. Why would it? It's a digital device, so that doesn't matter at all. 675 is perfectly fine to use. The reason I'm using the 675 is because that's what I had. I just happened to have one. But if we look at the price of, say, the 629, they're about 85 pence each. So you could have 5 for £4.20, you know, which is more than enough, really. Well, it's enough to do 5 consoles. So what we need to make sure is that our guide allows us to wire up the 629 the same way. So if we look, what we need to do is find the data sheet for the 12C508, which is easily enough done. Taking a while. There we go. You can see that the 508 is end of life. Whoop, didn't want to do that. It's end of life, so you know, there's no reason to really be using it anymore. We want to look at the pinout of the. There it is. Okay, so let's compare that to what we have in the 629 or 675. So let's put that there. Let's put that there. So pin 1 is volts in, pin 8 is ground, pin 2 is GPIO 5, GPIO 4, GPIO 3, GPIO 2, GPIO 1, GPIO 0. It's exactly the same pinout. So we need to make no adjustments in our installation, which is really good news. So the next step is we need to grab our programmer and program the chip with the code. So the code's downloadable from here. I have a European console, so I want the European code. Let's save that hex file. there's our hex file there. So yeah, what I'll do is grab the programmer, plug it in, and we'll have a look. Right, so as I did with my switchless Super Nintendo mod that you might have seen for the Super Nintendo handheld Part 1, Part 2 coming soon, and a switchless mod for the Mega Drive Genesis. I'm using a Mini Pro programmer. It's a very cheap programmer that you can get from eBay. So what we need to do is we need to find our PIX number. So we just copy that into our device. Hopefully it comes up. Whoop. Yeah, so the 629 is there. We've got the 6750. There it is. So the manufacturer's microchip. There's the part number, 12F675. Select that. And we'll just read from the chip. Make sure it's working. Everything's successful. It's got nothing on it. Next thing we do is open up our hex file. So in our downloads folder, the last thing I downloaded is the hex file. So it's the MM3 mod chip hex code, European version for the 12F69, which is the same as the 65. There we are, code's loaded. Doesn't use the entire memory, and we wouldn't want it to. And then all we do is hit the program button and see if this works. Done, programs. It's just that easy. If you're looking to do anything like this, switchless mods or you know, anything. Actually, the Mini Pro is also good for, you can use it to check IC logic, and I may do a video about that. I think you can also use it to check round chips, so it's good for if you've got a ZX Spectrum and you need to make sure the chips are working. I think you can use this thing to check them, but I don't know, so don't quote me on that. Okay, next step is to install the mod chip. We've programmed it, so let's put it in and see if it works. Right, look at the installation instructions, and you can see that there are seven connections that we need to make to the board. Pins 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So pin 2 we don't need to do. So we need 7 bits of wire, which I have here, 6 and 1. And what we're going to do before we even start playing around with the board is we're going to wire up our PIC with our 7 bits of wire now. Rightio, that's it. Wires are on our mod chip. And what we'll be doing is like just sticking it somewhere on the board with a bit of hot glue and on a bit of non-conductive foam, like we have for the Mega Drive and SNES mods. So the next step is we need to remove this shield, as I had surmised. So it only goes through the board at one point, which is this point here, and the rest of the points are on top of the board. So we should just be able to do this with a solder sucker and a pair of tweezers. Obviously, if you're doing this, be careful of solder splashes. You don't want to, you know, whip solder all over IC legs or something. That would cause you a problem. I'm going to imagine this board has a ground plane. Solder sucker's a bit tight because it's full of solder. Yeah, the board's going to have a ground plane, so that's going to make sinking heat difficult. Just scrape off my solder out of my gun. I bought a new solder sucker because my old one died. But this one The solder sucker is not a very good tool anyway. Like what I'd really like is one of those sort of really expensive desoldering heat pumps where you just kind of put it on and go and it sucks all, you know. But that's out of the budget at the moment. If this doesn't work, I will get my rework gun out. But it looks like we're going to be lucky. The flexibility of the shielding means that if I just suck a little bit of solder off of it, it pretty much just pops up. Okay, so that I think is that. Oh, there we go. So that's the shielding removed. Put that to one side. I think we will reinstall that. Although realistically, it does nothing. There's a massive heatsink above that shield, which would equally be doing the job of that shielding. Rightio, our board is exposed. We are naked. So our next step is to figure out where all these wires go. I have no idea. Obviously, if you don't have a PE22 board, if you have a different revision board, then you're going to have to follow a different guide. But Quaid's guide does have all the board revisions in it. So it's just a matter of finding the right one for you. So for this one, the diagram is in this area. So this is where we're taking all of our signals from. What I will do is I will hot glue the PIC to the top of this chip, which is IC304 according to the board. So I'm just going to glue it like that. Pin 1 is the blue wire. So pin 1 is on the upper left as I look at it. And that's because most of the low number wires are on this side and most of the high number wires are on this side. So this is minimize the runs. Yeah, so we'll just pop a bit of hot glue on that guy. Then plop our chip on him. And there we go, stuck. Okay, so now it's just a matter of following the guide and placing the wires where they need to go. Okay, so the chip's positioned. All we need to do is go wire by wire and follow the guide. It's that simple. The guide looks pretty easy. Most of the solder points are these larger solder points here, so it doesn't look like we're going to have too much trouble. So let's crack on. Something that has occurred to me, my legs are too long on my IC, so I'm going to have to flatten them out and then cut them and resolder them. But that's easy to do now it's in position, so I'll do that now and then we'll do the soldering. Rightio, we're installed. Let's take a close-up video. Okay, so here is our mod chip and it's hot glued on top of that IC, and then we're running the wires according to the diagram all over the place. Some of these could be optimized, so especially power and ground, which is pin 1 and pin 8. See, pin 8 is coming over here to a test pad for ground, and power's coming up here to the connector, but there will be power and ground in this area, so you could optimize it. Looking at the guide, there is an optimized version, but it doesn't include a diagram, so I didn't follow it. And to be honest, I don't care that much. I'm sure this will work the way it is. Longest wire is 4, and 4 is coming all the way over to this connector. So I'm not really sure what this signal is. Video, maybe? Oh yeah, but that's it. That's installed. So what we're going to do is reinstall the shield. And then we should be good to go. Is it hubristic to install the shield without testing it? Probably. Will I regret it? Probably. Right, shield's back on, mod chip's in. I think we're done. So we'll put the console back together, power it on, see if it works. And then we'll test some games from other regions, see if they load. Here we are, plugged back into the TV. So let's turn it on. Alarming weight. Incorrect aspect ratio. Oh, that's interesting. This isn't the EU boot menu. I guess maybe this is the one you get in the States. I've never seen this one before. I'm used to the one we have, which is all squares and then like a picture of a keyboard and a picture of some memory cards. Okay, so that's interesting. Definitely know the mod chip's doing something. So let's put a game in this guy. Tiger Woods 90. Oh no. Well, Tekken worked before, so let's try Tekken again and see what happens. Okay, it's gone into CD player mode. That's interesting. Let's reset the console. It's not playing the game. Let's try a region 3 game and see if that works. Right, so I've burnt off PlayStation game image on this CDR. We'll just pop that on there, and let's reset the console. Again, I'm not getting any sound because the cable's bad. I need to source a new one. Okay, so again, boot it up to the American menu. Let's close the lid. Game's spinning up. There you go, it boots. So I'm thinking the hex code for the microcontroller that we loaded in is not the right hex code for this region. I can see because the CDR boots fine, but all of my official games are not booting. Now, that's less than ideal, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to desolder the mod chip. I'm going to solder on a pin header, so then we can try some different hex files on those processors and see which one works best. So I've soldered the pin header here to host the chip on top of the heatsink, and I can see now if I play the burnt game, I get the error message. If I play the real game, that now boots fine. So it's definitely something with the way the mod chip was behaving that's making it not work. The interesting thing also is it's still the US menu, so there's no connection to any of the pins, which I find interesting. It means that just by soldering a wire to a position on the board, you cause it to jump to a different menu, which I think is interesting. I don't really understand that. I could look into it. I might do. But yeah. So next thing we're going to do is burn some chips and try them in this socket. Okay, so I've burnt another chip here, exactly the same as we've already done in this video. I've used a different source for the hex file, so I found an article which I will link in the description, maxconsole.com. It's linked in the description, and that's where I recommend you download the hex files from. And I'll put a note also in the video, which you would have seen by you got to this point, that you need to download from a different place. So that's solved our problem now. I've got Tiger Woods in, and we'll press the lid close button. Disk is spinning, and it boots. Yay! So we're reading regular discs and we're reading backups. I don't have any out of region PlayStation games to actually test, but I think if it's reading local discs and it's reading backups, then it would read import discs as well. So that's great. All we got to do now is put the PlayStation back together. There we go. We've modded the PlayStation. Unexpected hiccup along the way. You know, you can only trust your sources to be reliable, but obviously I've got nothing against that Quaid guide. It's really good. I suggest you follow that guide. It's just the files that he makes available, for whatever reason, are not the correct ones. You can't blame him for not testing the European files. He is, you know, in the US, so he would have only ever modded US region consoles. So, you know, that's an understandable mistake to make. But yeah, other than that, really good guide and really easy to follow. So we've modded our PS1. I'm not going to do retro brighting in this video. What I might do is another video of that later. I'm waiting for another bag of sodium percarbonate, which is the oxygen bleach that I use and I find best for getting rid of these yellow stains. Yeah. So when that comes in, I'll probably will do the lid and clean it up a bit. But other than that, I think this is done. It works fine. Got to get a new cable, obviously. That yellow, the fact that the old cable is yellow and no sound. I know that's the cable and not the console, because the other consoles also have the same problems. So that's that. Yeah, so if you found the video useful, please like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. It's 16-Bit Bench. If you have any requests, if you have anything you want me to look at, please just send me a message and I'll see what I can do about that. But yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.